is memory loss. Just wanted to make a note that Walpole Media is here recording today, live streaming on cable, and then you can access it after if you want to rewatch it or if somebody that's not here wants to watch it. Just want to ask if anyone has any questions at all, please just raise your hand and we'll bring the mic over to you because otherwise your question won't be heard on the video. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to pass it over to Catherine right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks for having us here today. It's great to be here. This is our first in-person event, so it's great to see smiling faces and no masks. Hi, welcome, sit down. So I'm just going to share a little bit about Bridges and who we are, and then Pete's going to go ahead and do the presentation. So just briefly, Bridges by Epic at Westwood, we're located over on University Avenue. The good landmark is Wegmans. We're right across the street from there. So we built in 2017. So we're one of 10 bridges. Epic Senior Living is a local New England company based in Waltham. So they have some independent as well as assisted living, but Bridges is all memory care. That's all we do at our community, and Bridges is specific to that. So as it says here, communities are created exclusively to care for those in all stages of Alzheimer's as well as other forms of dementia. Unique culture and philosophy embraces each resident's life story. So we do things like before a resident moves in, we get all of their information from their families and we try to make their experience with us just as unique as possible. So the unique communities, we're 72 suites inside the building, and it's broken down into 4 neighborhoods of 18. So kind of an intimate feel of 18, but a much larger community with all the services that entails. Comfort, familiarity, and security for residents. So it is a secure facility because of memory care, but it doesn't feel like that. It really feels like a assisted living kind of community. So lots of bright lights, and there's a few photos here. This is our living room in each of the communities. That's the outdoor patio outside of each of our households, a community room where we do some activities, and the garden over there that we do some planting and things like that. We have activities from 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, go out on excursions as well. So this is just some planting and some activities that we do. Also wanted to mention, we do, in addition to having the community, we provide a lot of complimentary type of education training. They're all virtual now, but they will be in the community again. So if you want information on that, just let us know. There's some forms to fill out, or just contact Peter or I, and we're happy to pass on that information to you. So we're still virtual for next quarter, but hopefully we'll be doing things in the community. We can have you all come over and see our beautiful gardens and our facility. So, and then I think Pete's going to take it from here and talk about the topic of the day.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks a lot for coming today, and it's a beautiful day to be able to be outside. You're inside right now, but some of you have been to our community and have some friends actually there. And how many of you folks actually have been to our community? 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. We had a person who just actually had their husband move in from the Walpole area and is doing quite well. We're going to talk today, and it's a very important conversation to have. This is a conversation. It's not going to just be me up here the whole time talking. I'd rather it be interactive. So if you have a question, certainly, we can talk right then and there if something piques your interest, if you have more questions. If something, comes up that we need a little bit more time, I might say let's park this until the end and we can talk more about it for time's sake. Normal aging versus memory loss. A lot of folks will come into our communities and ask me or Catherine or our wellness director or executive director, is this normal? Is it what my husband or my wife or my my dad or my mom is experiencing? So the answer is that it depends. So there's some hallmark things that we do know in regards to memory loss. when we talk about, I'll just give you a framework. When we talk about dementia, dementia is more of like an umbrella term for lack of a better term. Alzheimer's makes up about 50 to 60% of all folks that are living with this disease. Alzheimer's is a disease, dementia is a disease. There are many different stages involved. We have lots of these types of presentations we were doing prior to the pandemic. We would do them at the community, going to the Council on Aging's, and so we would talk about all kinds of different topics. One of them is this, which is a very important one. It's kind of like an introductory conversation. There's also other ones such as effective communication, the 7 signs and stages of dementia as well. And we'd be more than happy to come back and do those presentations as well. But this one is really important because a lot of people are wondering, not only from their own perspective, is this happening to me, or is it happening to my loved one, and how do I really know, and how do I prepare, as a caregiver? Before I get any further, I wanted to just make mention that on your chair there were some cards. Those cards, if you want to fill it out, you don't have to, but if you want to fill it out, we will make sure that you get a copy of this presentation, both electronically and also if you would prefer to have it mailed to you, we can make sure you have that. So at the end, we'll collect those forms from you so that we can go ahead and reach out to you and make sure you get this presentation. A lot of folks will say after the presentation that they really want to have this to give to their friend or their family, and so it helps to kind of educate. Memory and aging, there can be subtle changes in memory occurring, and it is a part of the natural process of aging. So, as we get older, our brains actually do shrink. The brain can produce new brain cells. That is a really important piece. We just did a big presentation in partnership with McLean Hospital. And the Dr. Forrester mentioned that, contrary to popular belief, some people say that your brain is born with these brain cells and then you don't have any more. That's not true. We're constantly creating new brain cells. But there is a significant memory loss that's inevitable because of that shrinkage. And there's also other factors too, which we'll talk about. Many older adults worry about their memory and thinking and the abilities, and they start to report kind of some slip in the 50s and 60s that their memories might be being affected. Very normal. Everyone has forgotten names and maybe where things are kept, maybe your keys or whatnot, or maybe tip of the tongue issues, meaning I can't think of that one word. That's really normal. When we're young, we often disregard these lapses, but as we grow older, we may worry more about them. Time is our worst enemy. So as we get older, we're going to go ahead and have lots of things maybe occurring. We're talking 50s and 60s. A lot of life events do happen at that age for folks in those age ranges and older. There's a lot of changes that can happen, not only to the physical body, but also socially. There may be some stressors in life, change in work or ending a career. It could be a spouse who's passed away. It could be children moving away from home. Lots of situations like that which can affect memory. Sometimes changes to our memory occur sooner than anticipated and faster than expected. A lot of this has to do more with genetics than anything else, depending on if someone was to fit into that. If it occurs sooner, mostly it's because of genetics and mostly because of his family history. These are some precursors. So the younger that someone might be experiencing this, it's probably more pertinent that someone has something like that in their family or genetic related. May mistake the natural slowing of the mental process to true memory loss. This is another issue. The hippocampus is a region in the brain that involves formative and retrieval of memories. Okay, I'm not going to get too technical with you on this. We certainly can get into a lot more, but a lot of it has to do with also these things called proteins that are in the brain over time, not just based on our life, our lifestyles and whatnot, but it can affect the brain cells. We talk about plaques and tangles. Has anybody ever heard of plaques and tangles in the brain? So this is some things that happen where, when we talk about memory loss, it's all about retrieval. And so if our hippocampus is affected in any way through lifestyle, and we'll talk about that as well, things that we eat, the way that we live our life, and also genetics can cause these transfers of chemicals going back and forth so that the brain can retrieve what we have to retrieve. Older people often experience a decrease of blood flow to the brain, which can impair memory and lead to changes in cognitive skills as well. So this kind of gives us a framework as to causes of age-related memory loss. Occasionally, memory lapses can be frustrating, but they aren't necessarily cause for concern. Like I said, it's just a part of the normal aging. Age-related memory changes are not the same as dementia. Key differences between age-related memory loss and dementias: age-related memory loss does not disrupt your daily life significantly. I might be having a conversation with someone as I'm getting older and I just can't remember something, but that's not going to change relationships, and it's not going to change how I function throughout the day. What does change, and this is more related to dementia, is performing day-to-day activities of managing work, hobbies, social activities, family relationships, decision-making. So you probably have, let me ask you, how many of you folks are here just for education? Okay, so half or so. How many of you folks are here because you have a loved one that's been touched by dementia, or a family member or a friend? Okay, a few. Okay, and so as you're thinking, you may have some thoughts of some people in your life that are having these issues where they may be going ahead and struggling with just activities of daily living, getting up in the morning, paying bills, going out to social events, remembering to go to social events. These are all things that are more specifically affects those who have dementia. Dementia is marked by persistent, if you remember this, persistent disabling decline of 2 or more intellectual abilities. So one, not a big deal. When it becomes more than one and multiple issues across all areas of life, that can be an issue. Memory, language, reasoning, abstract thinking, these are all things that are affected. Other causes of memory loss are this short list. Stress and anxiety, we know, is one of the top reasons why folks can experience memory loss. Just thinking from a normal situation, if you have a ton of stuff to do during the day, or you have a very important event that has to be met, let's say it's a wedding or a birthday party, or you need to go on a interview, something very important, and then you have multiple other things going on. Stress and anxiety can just affect any normal, situation or human being. We do know that when somebody has a diagnosis or even undiagnosed form of dementia, which could span anywhere from mild cognitive dementia all the way to over 100 different types of dementias. Stress and anxiety is one of the big ones that basically I call it short-circuiting. The process from beginning thought to finishing whatever the task is, thought to task. That is one of the big ones. And when we work with a lot of folks that come in, and one of the common conversations is not only about stress and anxiety, but medications perhaps that someone is being prescribed. And a lot of times doctors will prescribe an anti-anxiety or an antidepressant to help to offset that, so it actually will improve memory in some ways. Vitamin B12 deficiency can have causes with memory loss, thyroid problems, whether it's hypo or hyperthyroidism, infections, so it could be any kind of infection, urinary tract infection, it can be a blood infection. All these different types can affect memory loss. We talk about whole systems of the body. So, they're all interconnected. And one thing is when one is not working very well, it can affect or have to be compensated by others. Alcohol abuse can be one as well. There are a few different forms of dementia that are specific to alcohol abuse. That doesn't mean that someone who drinks a glass of wine or something like that each day is going to have memory loss, but it's the severe type of abuse. Dehydration, it can be acute or constantly happening. Dehydration is very important, especially for our folks who have diagnosis of dementia, is making sure that they're hydrated very well. It's not only important just from the body standpoint, hips and joints and all kinds of things like that, arthritis, but dehydration so that it doesn't lead to these infections as well. And also something that doesn't really get talked about a lot is if you suspect that someone is having difficulty with memory loss, sometimes it can be as easy as just going and seeing your doctor to make sure that there isn't some kind of interaction of the medications. Mild cognitive impairment, it is an intermediate stage between normal age-related cognitive changes and the more serious symptoms. And sometimes MCI can occur for a very, very long time, and folks can go function throughout their life for a very, very long time. And sometimes it isn't always detectable either. Some of these other forms of dementia can be detected through various different assessments by a neurologist or a doctor or doing some CAT scans or things like that. Some common symptoms include frequently losing or misplacing things. So when we talk about kind of the 7 stages of dementia, MCI is like at the beginning, first, second, third stage of these different dementias. Frequently losing or misplacing things, frequently forgetting conversations and appointments or events, difficulty remembering the names of new acquaintances, difficulty following a flow of conversation. I've met a number of folks, anywhere from age 50 to you name it, all the way to very late in age. Folks have been able to sustain and function at a very high level, who have also had a diagnosis of MCI. 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. And like I said, Alzheimer's is one of the most frequently diagnosed types of dementias. There's over 100 or so different ones, but these are pretty classic. It's memory loss that affects day-to-day function. Challenging in planning or solving problems. So, for example, if you have to go to a doctor's appointment, well, you have to plan that out. You need to, get your keys together. You need to make sure you bring your insurance card, and sometimes you need to make sure you have a good full tank of gas to get there. You got to remember how to get there. You got to remember what doctor, if you have multiple doctors, which doctor am I going to go to today, right? So all these things, and if someone can't do that, they may be experiencing some kind of memory loss. Performing different tasks. I have folks who have diagnosis of dementia who will come in and they've been making, lasagna their whole life. And then there are steps that they just can't remember of how they can remember, that they make a really good lasagna and their family loves it, to come over and eat Ma's lasagna, but the person can't remember the steps anymore. Confusion with time or place. So frequently some folks can experience issues where they might wake up in the middle of the night and think it's daytime. Or they may be reminiscing back to a time, decades ago, that this is, a current time. So these are things that are, serious in terms of signs of Alzheimer's. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships, and that's sometimes why, the keys are taken away sometimes. The car keys are taken away because the distance issues and spatial relationships. Sometimes also new problems with words and speaking and writing can be an issue. Misplacing things or losing the ability to retrace steps, decreased poor judgment, which are all from work or social activities. This is one of the big ones that can happen, where folks are just hear it time and time again. Well, my husband is not the guy he used to be, or is as social as he used to. And sometimes these types of things right here, the new problems with words and speaking, have a direct correlation to withdrawal from work and social activities. Folks who are not able to keep up with conversations will withdraw from social activities because they just can't do it anymore, and it's embarrassing sometimes. Changes in mood and personalities. This does happen with some forms of dementia as well, where, like, for example, Lewy bodies or vascular dementia or things like that, there can be mood changes or personality changes. We're going to talk a little bit more about the signs of normal aging and memory loss. Short-term memory and learning, sometimes forgetting, this is a little bit redundant, but forgetting names and appointments, but remembering later, and forgetting names of close friends or family, or forgetting recent events, like visitors you had that day or what you had for dinner. Okay, so that's more short-term. We're constantly making connections in our brain and learning new things. And if we don't continue to work on it, we'll lose it. So there are some things called mnemonic devices that you can use to kind of trick your brain. And it's kind of like brain games, just kind of exercising your brain. I don't know if you do those here at the Council on Aging, but we do them at our community. And just for anybody, does anybody know who Tom Brady is? Tom Brady, I hope so. Gee whiz, come on now. So Tom Brady, he actually does that. He was concerned at one point of all the concussions that he was getting. So there was a big article, several years ago that he was like, I'm going to go ahead and I get up every morning and I do these brain games, these exercises for my brain, because he was concerned. He had gotten a few concussions. So these are things that we do. We do and at our community, and it's really important for folks to do that. There's a lot of activities without even knowing that they're brain games that are actually really good for those who are concerned about memory loss, or you feel like you're having some memory loss issues, or somebody who does. Occasionally forgetting something that was on the tip of your tongue. Sometimes word salad, you're mixing up words. People mix up words such as bed instead of table. Occasionally forgetting something you were told and versus asking the same information over and over and over. These are differences. So occasionally misplacing things like your phone, your glasses, or remote, but being able to retrace steps and find them, versus misplacing things and often being able to find them or putting objects in unusual places, like house keys in the bathroom cabinet or the iron in the freezer. Happens, folks. Forgetting parts of an experience, or forgetting an entire experience that it even happened. Forgetting where you parked the car versus forgetting how to drive a car. Planning, thinking, and decision-making. Being slow to react versus getting very confused when planning or thinking through things. Another one is becoming less able to manage multiple tasks, especially when distracted, versus the inability to complete tasks independently, taking much longer to complete everyday tasks or not even completing them, like paying bills, taking medication, shopping. These are all, the contrast between normal aging and true memory loss. A couple other ones is making a bad decision once in a while. Happens. It happens to all of us. Versus having frequent poor judgment, especially when assessing risks or behaving socially inappropriate in ways. Occasionally missing a monthly payment, okay, versus having trouble keeping track, and then it just piles up. Language and communication, this is a big part of kind of process how we function in life. You know, we're social creatures. So there's a big difference between having trouble finding the right words sometimes and having frequent problems finding the right words and often incorrectly referring to objects inappropriately. Needing to concentrate a bit harder to keep up with conversations versus having trouble following and joining in conversations. That kind of goes back to why people might be more socially isolating. Losing the thread if you are distracted, you know, of a conversation, or there are many people speaking at once. That's normal, you know, but difficulty following in the flow of normal conversations and just basically not engaging at all. Orientation. This is another big difference between normal aging and versus memory loss. It's normal to become confused about the day or week, but figuring it out later, you know, especially if we're tired or whatnot. What's not normal is losing track of the date, season, or passage of time, or important, you know, things that have happened in your life. Walking into a room and forgetting why you went there, but remembering again quickly, pretty normal. Okay, I see Debbie laughing in the back. Is that happening now? Okay, not knowing why or where you are, you know, where you're at, even though it's a familiar place. That's not normal. Temporarily forgetting destinations or pausing to remember directions versus getting lost while walking or driving in a familiar area. Vision changes related to, this is a, you know, sometimes not as common and frequent, but vision changes related to cataracts or other changes in the eyes, such as cloudy vision, versus problems in interpreting visual information. At our community, we have a number of folks who have these visual interpretation issues. So what we do there is we will actually, we have our walls painted, like in the bathroom, we'll have one accent wall. And throughout our whole community, there are other accent walls to kind of guide folks to where they need to go. Obviously, we have a staff that's there 24 hours a day to help folks wherever they're at. Some need more help, some folks need less help. But these are things that we do to kind of compensate for these lacks of visual information. Difficulty judging distances on stairs, which can then cause folks to fall, which then cause folks to go into the hospitals and rehabs. This happens all the time. And then that's the first time that they've actually been diagnosed with that they actually have a cognitive impairment of some sort. Misinterpreting patterns or reflections, such as seeing water in the shower as glass or not recognizing themselves in the mirror. This stuff does happen. Difficulty determining color and contrast. Mood and behavior, I mentioned this, that happens in a, I don't want to say rare, but it's not as frequent, but it can happen. Sometimes being weary of work and familiar obligations, that's something that's kind of normal, as opposed to becoming withdrawn and losing interest in work and social situations or hobbies. Sometimes, and that's why I mentioned earlier about how depression and anxiety go kind of hand in hand with real cognitive impairment of some sort. Sometimes feeling a bit low or anxious, or that happens to everybody, as opposed to getting usually sad, anxious, frightened, or low self-confidence and not wanting to do things. Another difference between normal aging and memory loss is developing a specific way of doing things and becoming irritable when the routine is disrupted. That's me. But it is not normal when becoming irritable or easily upset at home, at work, or with friends in comfortable, familiar places. So just being, at a social event or whatever it is, and just all of a sudden having a real inappropriate outburst or behavior issue. When to see a doctor, it's different for different people. But a rule of thumb is when the memory lapses become frequent, or your family or member is concerned, make an appointment as soon as possible to talk to your physician. Maybe it's a medication issue. Maybe it was something that was not disclosed about, family history or whatnot. But now folks are seeing, and especially if it's a life-threatening situation, which sometimes it can be, it's important to have those visits with your doctor. Even if your symptoms don't indicate dementia, or your friend or family doesn't indicate dementia, steps can be taken to prevent small problems from becoming bigger ones. So kind of overcompensating for those. Oh, okay. And the doctor, sorry, and the doctor can assess risk factors, evaluate symptoms for screenings and tests. I mentioned that. Sometimes they may want you to go see a professional, like a neurologist, a specialist, as well as treat for any reversible causes of memory loss. There are some medications out there that can help to slow down the process of dementia, such as Aricept, Namenda, Exelon, things like that. And there may be some other things, such as types of medications that might have built up and is causing some kind of neurological issue. So those things can be reversed. If it's a true diagnosis of dementia, that is a disease, and in a typical rule of thumb for diseases is that they're progressive, and there is no cure for them. At least not yet. We hope so. We had a presentation by McLean Hospital I had mentioned earlier, and there's some really great research out there. If you're interested in research studies, I can get you that information as well, or Catherine and I can get you that information. Early diagnosis is really one of the keys. It can help improve the quality of life for those with Alzheimer's disease or other types of dementia. A diagnosis is beneficial because you can begin treatments to manage symptoms, and now there's some really good stuff out there that's innovative. Educating yourself and your loved ones about the disease, plan for the future, and settle financial matters as well. Coping with the diagnosis. So after, it's kind of like what now? After someone, after a doctor, says that there's a diagnosis, and so coming to terms with that, memory loss and possible onset of dementia can be difficult. This is a family disease. It affects a lot of folks. What they say is that for every 7th mailbox that you pass on the road, there's a family that's living with someone with dementia. Some people try to hide memory problems from others. Family members may try to compensate for a person's loss of memory, often without being aware of how much they've adapted for the memory impairment over time. I work with lots, and Catherine does too, with lots of families where they've been doing this for years, and it's just gotten much, much more difficult. And it can stress the entire family out. Some folks are just trying to piecemeal the whole care together for some folks, or it's maybe just one spouse who's doing that, and that can affect the spouse as well. We have presentations that we do as well out in the community for caregiver support. We actually have caregiver support classes, or groups, I should say, not classes, just basically a time to kind of get together and kind of share what their experiences are that they're going through. And then we also have educational programs for folks who are trying to manage their own stress as a caregiver. Dementia is life-altering, but with early intervention and education, planning, and support, you can gain acceptance. It's easier when you're with other people who are going through the same thing that you are. Be prepared to face challenges that come your way, and ultimately have a better quality of life. And that's what it's about, is that some folks can live with dementia for years and decades. I've seen it. It's about making sure that folks have a quality of life. And that's what we do at our community. And, so that is the end of the presentation, but it's not the end of our time. That we can spend some time maybe talking about what questions you might have. Maybe this has come up with some questions for you, or some situations that you might want to talk about. We're more than happy to talk. Yes. Let me give you the phone. Let me give you this.
I'm here to get information, obviously for myself, but mostly for a friend of mine who's in a little bit worse shape than me. But she's having memory problems, but she's also she's diabetic, but she's not on any medication. And I was wondering if that can cause dementia, or have dementia problems come on quicker without being on medication for that diabetes.
What's your name again?
Oh, I'm sorry, Linda.
Linda. So Linda mentioned about, is there a relationship between, diabetes or not getting any kind of, any insulin or whatnot. First of all, I will tell you this. I am not a doctor, okay? But there is a lot of research that is out there that does indicate when folks are not getting, the proper type of medications, and if there is some kind of form of diagnosis. Does she have a diagnosis of dementia, or?
She's getting her blood checked, and it goes up and down.
Ah, yes. Okay. So we do see at our community, we have folks that do have diabetes, and that can mask if someone is not getting, if their blood sugars are not regulated correctly, then it can cause all sorts of system issues. One of them being neurological. So someone who is, doesn't have a good blood sugar and it's low, their response to all kinds of things, questions and tasks, can be affected. So my big thing that I would say is that she should probably go to a doctor, talk to her doctor about. There's lots of different types of medications that can be used, and it's not necessarily an injection. It can be a by-mouth medication such as a metformin or something like that. So I would say the first order of business, see if she can go there, talk about her with her doctor, her primary care physician, about the types of options that she has, and also the types of symptoms that she's also are experiencing, if there are lapses in her cognition as well. Yeah. What other questions? Yes, over here, and I'll be right there.
I was wondering about the over-the-counter medicines. For instance, Prevagen and For Brain. I actually took a bottle of each one and didn't seem to notice any improvement. Should I have?
Wow, I'm not a doctor, but I will tell you that the Prevagen has come up on a number of presentations. And so it is an over-the-counter drug. If you look at the back, it claims that it may not do anything, something to that effect. So, what is the Prevagen? It has something to do with like jellyfish or something. It has something in it. And it's never been, I need to look at it again, but I think it hasn't been actually FDA approved, but it is something that they think there may be some kind of connection to the memory. Over-the-counter medications are one of those things where, you can take it for a very long time and not see much difference. It's not like a regular medication where they've done a ton of studies for it. So it might work better in some people than in others. So it's very hard to say about over-the-counter, especially things that haven't been FDA approved to actually have any kind of true research. The other thing about medications is there needs to be a therapeutic effect. It has to be for a very, very long time. You mentioned about taking it for a week. or even a month. Sometimes it takes a long time before there's going to be a therapeutic value or an effect. So I would say that the jury is still out on whether that works or not, but it certainly is out there. And I'll tell you, somebody is getting very rich promoting this type of stuff. And I'm not saying that it does work or doesn't work. It's just there's not enough research probably to know truly.
Okay, I have a couple of things that I'm wondering if have to do with memory. Tinnitus, tinnitus, and just lack of sleep.
And your question is?
Do these things affect your memory?
So lack of sleep, and was there a second one?
Tinnitus,
Oh,
the
tinnitus,
ear,
sure.
yeah.
Those are actually great questions. So tinnitus, I say tinnitus, you say tinnitus. I don't know. We say tomato type of deal, right? So ringing in the ears. So that, and you mentioned lack of sleep. Probably, and I don't know if it actually was up on the slide, but it's a very important question. So there is a direct correlation between lack of sleep and memory loss. Okay, acute. It doesn't even necessarily mean that it has to do with dementia. I'm not even mentioning that, but just there is a correlation between lack of sleep and performance. You're just doing daily activities. We do know that folks who have dementia, specifically dementia, also have lack of sleep, sleep deprivation, basically. McLean Hospital, I keep going back to this presentation, we're going to be doing another round in October with McLean Hospital and Bridges with the same type of presentation. But they had a few slides where Dr. Forrester was discussing about the research, and that it's amazing how just an hour or two of lack of sleep over a long period of time can actually affect folks' cognitive abilities. Tinnitus, I'm not so sure about, but I do know that tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, can definitely cause folks to not be able to interact as much or even, hear as well. At our community, now I'm talking about folks who actually have dementia, some kind of form of diagnosis of dementia. Some of them have regressed and have isolated themselves from social activities because of hearing loss, which tinnitus can be in that category. So when folks are, isolating themselves, it's kind of like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg type of thing. So if someone is having, if they're isolating, is it because they're lack of hearing, or is it because they're, having some dementia symptoms, or is the dementia symptoms causing them to isolate, and then they're just, not engaging? It's hard to tell. So the tinnitus one is an interesting one. I will tell you this. If you write down your information, I'm going to talk to Dr. Forrester and ask a little bit more about that. So if you would like me to do some research, I certainly will do that. Any other questions? Yes, another one. Yes.
You made reference to brain exercises, but you didn't spell it out just what it was.
Okay, here I'm going to spell it out for you. A L B C. Now, does anybody have any other questions? Remember those, okay? A, B, L, C, okay? What did I say? A, L, B, C. Just remember that, okay? I'll come back to that in a second, okay? What was it again? What did I say? ALBC. Okay. What other questions does somebody have? Any other questions? Yes.
Well, I have a friend, a couple, who have, the husband has Alzheimer's and she's home taking care of him. He's still, able to get around and do, functional things. But he can't drive. And recently, fell, broke his collarbone while he was jogging. So he has expressed that he's feeling like he's trapped. And so I'm wondering, what is the way that friends can help this couple? I think a lot of it also is that you have to help the caregiver sometimes more than the person with Alzheimer. So I'm just wondering about what we can do for somebody or a couple in that situation.
Well, the first thing, what is your name again? Ellie. So one of the questions is, a family in crisis who's dealing with a real true situation. The husband fell, broke collarbone. So, the most important thing is actually you're here today. No, I'm not saying like, oh, it's important, hey, I'm the guy who's giving you all the information, right? But it's important that you're here because then you can go back and you can talk to your friend who's experiencing a lot of caregiver issues right now. There's a caregiver support class that we can, I said class, but caregiver support group. They may not want to get involved, but knowing that you're there to support them is probably the most important thing. We offer educational programs on caregiver stress and how to deal with that. I can send you a presentation, and it's not really a presentation, it's more like tips that they can do. But one of them in particular that I would say is asking that two things. Number one is making sure that the caregiver takes time for themselves, even if it means that they have to get away out of the house for an hour of time for themselves is really important. Number two is to make sure that they know that they have a network of people like yourself who can support them. HESCO is a group that is out there that you could probably talk to the folks here. They have connections to HESCO as well, that there's all kinds of supports. Regardless if someone ever goes to Bridges or any of these other memory care places out there, there's tons of support. The Council on Aging has supports. There's these large groups like Alzheimer's Foundation and stuff. They're wonderful, but they're not on the grassroots. So folks that are close, bring them a casserole. I'm not trying to be funny about it, but bring them a casserole. Tell them, hey, this is a night off for you. You don't have to cook. These are all things that we all can do, and just to support, knowing that she's not alone, that he's not alone, the family, as much as they can help. Those are all really important things. And those are just real easy things to do, like immediate, but making sure that she feels like she's supported is probably the most important thing. Yeah. Back to the question that was asked earlier. What were those 4 letters that I asked? Okay, how many of you were practicing in your head when I asked that? Okay, so you talk about spell it out for me. I was just using kind of tongue in cheek, what to do. But these are things that we can do. Repetition. A lot of times, saying something 7 times. That's like one of those mnemonic devices. Other things that you can do. I don't know if folks do like to do like word games. Those are great. Doing anagrams. Have you ever taken an anagram where you have a bunch of jumbled up words and then you go ahead and basically make as many words out of these, letters up here? You can do that. Sometimes, doing crossword puzzles is great, or Sudoku. Yeah, there you go.
Not good, not crossword.
Okay, yeah.
And I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles.
Puzzles are great,
They affect your eyes too.
Yeah, and arthritis can be a big issue too, but
I gotta learn. You're hitting the nail with me. All these things. So I'm thinking right now, I gotta find out to go to somebody.
well, And if you did want some resources, get us some information to fill out the information. One of the things that not only from education, what we do is we also do resources. So if you need, I had a woman who called me the other day, and her husband is having difficulty, and she said, "Do you know any good neurologists around?" And so we were able to hook her up with a neurologist over at BID Needham. So, we're here for resources too. So, but brain games, very important, and it's also important to do it with other people too. So doing social activities with other people like you're doing here. The senior center is a huge resource. It's like, in the town of, where are we, Walpole, right? It's like a big pot of gold, in the town that some people don't realize that you have so many things here. And a lot of the things that are done here are all based on, helping to support a wonderful lifestyle. And a lot of people don't take a full advantage. But, whether you realize it or not, a lot of the things that are done here have to do with these like social events and brain games and, just getting together is just, all of that goes along. Repetition is a really important part of this whole keeping your brain active. So doing the same thing, and because it's connecting these, what they call synapses in the brain. So all these things are important. Yep. Yes.
In the news yesterday and today, they were talking about the new medication that they're working on. Have you heard about that one? And they don't feel that it's too good, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of medications that are coming out. A question was about there's new medications coming out all the time for memory. It all stems around studies, and it all stems around, from the time that a study begins to the time that there's something that actually hits the market for medications, it takes years. So, I would say let the studies bear itself out. There may be some medications coming out that may be showing improvement in memory. But honestly, it's going to take a long time. There were some medications that they thought would help with dementia years ago, and they were effective, but they only have a certain amount of effect. So the time, I think the jury is still out for that stuff too with the new medications. I think I know what you're talking about, but it's going to be probably still a long, long time. There's always something new coming out, whether it's memory or heart or brain or whatever it is. It's the new thing. So I think the thing is to wait and see. Is kind of the tried and true. Yes.
I was just going to say, I think it's important. One of the points one of the slides made was to get information early.
Yeah.
I think there's been a hesitancy on people's part to admit that they might be experiencing it because they're afraid they might find out and maybe it'll come faster, whereas knowing that you could get help, that you can still stay where you're at, but be supportive of you and not have it progress so fast. I think that's encouraging news for people, and that word needs to get out there to people because I think they are afraid to admit that there's a problem.
Yeah, that's a great point. There is a huge stigma even today. What is your name? Kathy. So Kathy mentioned about their, getting the information out there, and there's a stigma that people don't want to really talk about what their effect is, either by a spouse or a friend, or they're experiencing it themselves, because there's a sense of loss. As we get older, that we experience a lot of loss, and it's just another one of those losses. So, making sure that this it's normalized, be able to talk about it openly and freely is really is very, very important, because it's lonely, and then it leads to being isolated. So absolutely, yeah. Yes.
So is Epic only a residential facility, or do you have adult daycare?
Good question. We are a memory care assisted living. Bridges by Epic. Epic is our parent company. It is a residential placement. There are some other places that are out there, like the Julia Ruth House that some people might have heard of, Rogerson House. These are day programs. Walpole might the Council on Aging might have some other resources as well. But those are two that I know very, very well.
There's a wonderful facility. I don't know.
Rogerson?
Worcester.
Yes. Yep.
You know the one, I don't know where it's located.
Oh, in the one in Worcester as well. It's a little bit further west.
Very, very good facility.
Yep. There, day programs, but we're not. But there are. Sometimes day programs are just enough to some Council on Agings that I do know also have a memory cafe program and sometimes a day program. Do you guys have one here? So there is one here. So that's great. Yeah. Yep.
Preventative measures. You didn't talk about that, but I had heard that the right diet helps. You can't deny your genes, but the right diet, exercise.
Yeah, they talk about diet and exercise and the correlation between, brain health. We do a presentation on that too. But one of them that they found, some studies have found that the Mediterranean diet is very, very effective in staving off a whole bunch of different things. Not, the heart and the brain, are interconnected. So if you have a heart healthy diet, then you're going to have a brain healthy, outlook, so to speak. So Mediterranean diet is probably one of the best. And, low fat diet, or the healthy fats really. Low sodium, low, hydration is very important. Not as much, smoking is absolutely a no in all studies. There's a very high correlation between smoking and developing all kinds of different things, including dementia as well. Yep.
One other thing, I heard this, I think it's true for sure, but women, are they more susceptible than men to get it?
Depends on the type of dementia as well. So, there is no, fast and, fast rule about it. But I'll tell you that there are more women, only because they're living longer. So there's the types of dementias that develop. It's just part of the numbers, really. I don't think it necessarily is more in women than any of other. I will say that some types of dementias are more prevalent in certain genders. Well, thank you so much for coming to this. If you want to come to other ones, maybe talk to Debbie about maybe we can put together some other presentations. I know there's going to be a lot more people coming as time goes on to these types of things. We love to have these talks with you guys. I'm wondering where the coffee is, though. Wasn't this supposed to be a coffee and chat or something? No. That's right. But thank you so much for coming. We'll be here for a little bit. Oh, by the way, we have a book to give away. It's called the 36-Hour Book, 36-Hour Day. And if you have a card that has an X on the back of your card, you can have the book. If you have an X on the back of your card. Anybody have that? Oh, I thought I did. Oh my goodness.
I'll be the one person who left.
Well, there it is, right there. There it is.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you so much, Pete. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, everybody.